Brother, you know, in this channel, we always talk about some of the craziest stuff in the continent. Yes, Africa, brother. We talk about Africa in this channel. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Well, Mali, this country right here, has done some crazy stuff. They have cancelled French teaching in school. Some of the crazy stuff ever. So the Ministry of Education in Mali has cancelled the history of France being provided in Mali. So in other words, many of the African countries that were colonized by the French still teach history of France in class. So the specific history is Revolution of France. France Révolution, Révolution Française, the revolution in France. This is some story that happened in 1789 where France was fighting for its freedom. So basically, the story goes along the line that in France there were many classes, like the rich people dominated over the poor. You know, the poor people suffered, they were misled, they were mistreated. You know, like I always say, freedom is not acquired for free. You have to fight for freedom. And this is not new, because back in time, just imagine, in 1789, French people were fighting for their freedom. Against who? Against their own government. There was no such thing as a really government. There was a monarchy. So there was a king, or let me say, supreme whoever, dominating over everybody. And under him there was the church, and other people like peasants and people that had nothing, meant absolutely nothing. They were unalived for nothing, for looking at the boss's woman's breast, some crazy stuff like that. And these are the things that are being taught in Africa. Most African countries that speak French, they are taught, it's compulsory in school to learn about Révolution Française in 1789. Well, Mali said enough. None of that. Finish. Congratulations to Mali. Piga my coffee. Pick up my coffee, brother. That's what it is. Isn't that how we want to see it? I mean, brother, some people will say to you, you guys don't like France. It has nothing to do with not liking France. Like, which country out there want to be teachings and history of another country, especially a colonizer? Would France be happy that in France they're teaching history about Germany, since Germany took over France during World War II? No. You want to talk about French, right? It's the same thing in Africa. The Ministry of National Education of Mali has decided to suspend teaching of lessons of French Revolution in 1789. Big up my coffee again. This measure applies to all 9th grade secondary classes and must be implemented immediately. So the Ministry of Education has said clearly to the national schools, from now on, the 9th grades of secondary school, I know it's a bit confusing because all grades are not equal. You know, in America, grades are different. In Europe, they're different. In Africa, they're different. So just put it that way. 9th grade secondary. No more teaching French revolutionary studies. Enough. Finish. Basically, if you violate this order, your school will be penalized. Okay, for violation, you'll be sanctioned. Doesn't make sense. Is this dictatorship? I'm asking. Is it dictatorship to ask schools in your country to free themselves from the colonizer mind? I'm just asking. Is there maybe nothing wrong with learning the history of the colonizer? Or do you think Africa is too young to be learning stories of the colonizer again? Or maybe you feel it's about time Africa actually start learning histories of Africa, if not of the country, of many other countries in Africa. Are there no other revolution in Africa Malians could be learning from, but learning from the French people that colonized, beat them, enslaved them and stuff? I'm just asking. Now, sanctions. We were saying about sanctions. The ministry emphasizes that any breach of this directive could lead to disciplinary action. So disciplinary action to the school that tries to breach this, because black people they're always trying to please Europeans. Yes, you tell them some things, don't do this anymore, but some black dude somewhere there trying to please his white friend will say, no, in our school we still give. You see that a lot. You see that a lot. So what if they're suggesting as an alternative? Well, you're asking yourself the question to know, why have they suspended this program, this France Révolution of the 1789 in schools in Mali? Well, the government has not given an official statement about that, but we can clearly see this is about historical event. You know, this is about sovereignty. You can't be teaching your children the history of the neighbor's house, especially not if the neighbor beat you up back in the past. Are you telling your children a story about how brave the neighbor is? The neighbor beat you up and he took your first wife? I mean, she just left because she wanted to go. She was just a slut. But you're teaching your children that your neighbor took your first wife and he beat you up, and you're telling your children how strong the neighbor is? No, you don't do that. You don't do that. Matter of fact, history is always told by the winner, right? People that win wars are the ones that tell history. Most of the histories we know today are lies. They've told you Africa had nothing, knows nothing, no science. They lived in the dark. No languages. It's a lie. They say Africans didn't write. It's a lie. You see the writings of Ethiopians, right? It's a proof of Africans have done many things. Now, why do you see Ethiopian writing? Because Ethiopia is one of the only countries in Africa never to be colonized. That's why you can see, yes, Ethiopia have their own writing and they have their own alphabet. They have their own calendar that is not exactly what you guys see. Ethiopians have that. Now, how do we know this? Because again, Ethiopia was not colonized. Because Ethiopia was not colonized, they couldn't destroy history. It's there in your face. And Ethiopia stood very strong. They fought against the Italians. They beat them bad. Bad. Now, Ethiopians don't play. They don't cut their hair. The warriors didn't cut their hair. They believe that the hair was an extension of the central nervous system, and it allows you to pick up on vibration. That's what they believe. The hair will allow you to pick up in the same way your body hair stands or lifts up, however you say it, when you're scared or you're in anxiety or you're in danger. It's the same way they feel like your hair can identify danger from miles away. Now, they couldn't delete Ethiopia's story because they didn't colonize it. But what they did for the rest of Africa will shock you. They deleted the languages, history. They deleted many, many things. Like I said earlier, history is written by the victor. The victor tells the story. The lion always tells the story of a victor. Okay, never the gazelle tells the story. Never the gazelle. But now we have an opportunity to change things around. Some of the countries also did that in the past. Let's try to find out which country in the past changed back their history. They took over their schooling system to teach their children the right history. Haiti, okay? Haiti is this country right here. Haiti did some educational reform to decolonize school curricula, notably by removing and rewriting chapters that glorify French history. Now, Haiti was also controlled by France for many, many years. Matter of fact, French people went to Africa. They took Africans, some in Nigeria, Benin, Congo, they took them to Haiti to go work the field and sugarcane. They mistreated them really, 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 really bad. Now, what happened there was all the black people came together. They did a prayer. They did a voodoo prayer. I know some of you go like, oh, voodoo is witchcraft. Well, you're just not informed, okay? It's their belief. They did voodoo prayer, then they went to war against the white man because they were being mistreated bad. They went to war against the white man many, many years ago, okay? In 1804, they went to war against French people and they destroyed the French army in that island. Look at Haiti. This is the island. They destroyed the French. The French were buckled until they got reinforcement coming from Britain. That's when they say to Haiti, we are here with our big ships. We can bomb you. If we don't surrender, we will destroy the island. That is when they went with an agreement with Haiti saying you need to pay us money for losing slaves. Imagine having to pay for freeing yourself to the slave master. That's what they did for many, 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 many years, hundreds of years paying for this date. And as a punishment, what they did, the rest of Western nations refused to allow Haiti to enter the system. Let me remind you here, 1804, Haiti was the first black country in the world to be free. First in the world. 1804. In Africa, it's in the 1960s and stuff. Even South Africa is 1994. Haiti was in 1804. They were already free. But they couldn't grow and progress because white people say we're not going to allow you into the market. No, we can't do that. Because if we allow you into the market, what's going to happen is you're going to encourage other black people to revolt. Okay? Haiti has done the change. Algeria, this country right here, they were colonized by the French, beaten up badly. Matter of fact, after the Second World War, France wanted to acquire the atomic bomb of their own. America and Britain refused. They said, we're not giving you the technology. We can protect you with the atomic bomb we had. What did France do? They hired some specialists and stuff. They went to Algeria to do the testing of the atomic bomb. They didn't do the testing in France. They did the testing in Algeria, in the land. Matter of fact, after Algeria was free, after they unalived so many people, raped women and stuff, the Algerian government asked France, please provide us with the list. We want to see the map of where you did the testing. Because testing of the atomic bomb leaves residue of uranium, which is very dangerous. Radiation that destroyed lives. The French government refused to give them a map of where exactly they did the test. Okay, Algeria has also done that. Algeria has gradually removed narrative that valorized French colonization from school programs. Putting their own history of liberation, of local resistance, because they fought hard against the French people. Brazil has done the same with the Portuguese. They've done tremendous work. China, right here, you can see China. China has done the same too. Yes, fellas, you think only African people were colonized. China have gone through the most. Okay, many years ago there was the Opium War. Have you ever heard of the Opium War? Opium is the drug. Okay, so what basically happened is British people went to China selling opium to the Chinese people. Okay, they wanted the Chinese tea in return, and many of the Chinese became very addicted to the opium, and they were imported it, just like bananas. Now, the Chinese government back in time, or the authorities say, you know what, our people are going berserk. We have to stop this. They told the British to stop bringing the drug into the country. And guess what happened? British people got very angry and they came to the war. That was in 1835 to 1842. They started a war against China to force them to do drugs. Now they arrest the Nigerian brothers. They say they're doing drugs. I mean, this is crazy. Who's come on? Who learned from who? This is crazy. Like, you took the opium drugs to the Chinese people. You forced them the opium. Chinese people said we don't want it. You started a war. You unalive many Chinese people. Now my brother Onugu want to bring just small in London. You have a problem with that? Come on, man. That's not fair. How fair, man? How fair? Heaven. Now the second opium war also existed. In 1856 from 1860, there was the second opium war. The Chinese trying to stand up again, and in that time the UK didn't fight by themselves. They received support from who? From France. France supported the UK to force drugs on Chinese. My brother, let these people not teach you no lessons about morality. That's what it is. The government itself has not suggested any alternative. Now, alternatively, what can Mali teach people if they remove from this program? There are many things we learn in school that are not useful for us today. We know that. Some of the calculus and what do you use that stuff for? Why can't they teach you financial intelligence? Learning how to do finance. Why they don't teach you about money? Why they teach you stuff that you're never going to use, like Roma? Why do you want to know about Roma? I'm not saying you shouldn't learn about Roma or Greek, whatever, but that's for specific people, not for everyday people. For our fighters, our mental fighters should learn about Roma, know their history, but not for you. You work in the office. You should be providing bread. How do you provide bread with Roma? Alternatively, what can the Malians learn? There are many stories to learn, okay? Mali can learn about the Walulu Empire, for instance, okay? The Walulu Empire, Touré resistance. That's West African resistance from 1882 to 1898. Why is this relevant? The Walulu is relevant because it's a powerful story of resistance. It's a powerful story of resistance of West Africa. It's relevant to the Malians because they are West Africans. Now, there's also the story of the Maji Maji. That's number 2. Maji Maji rebellion. That was the rebellion in Tanzania. You see Tanzania on the map? The Tanzanian people fought against the Germans. Okay, that was in 1905 to 1907 because the Germans were trying to take advantage. They came to Africa acting like they were friendly, and the Tanzanians said, you can come, we can give you some of the lands, we can give you, some food, maybe one of our cousins or female cousins, so you can have a good time. Well, brother, same thing, same. Later on, they say, okay, you guys, you're going to come and work the field. They forced Tanzanians to work the field. For them, not for the Tanzanians, for them, so they can export the food. They beat them up, stranded them. The Tanzanians had enough. They said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. They went and did the prayer. Tanzanians did the prayer, the Maji Maji people. Some of them jumped into a river. They blessed the river. They went to war against Muzungu. Okay, that's a relevant story. A multi-ethnic uprising against German domination. So all ethnicities in Tanzania came together like one people. That's what I'm saying to you. Countries are the biggest lies. They lie to you about the country. Your brothers are people that fight next to you. All these ethnic groups came together fighting against Muzungu. Can't the Malians learn about this? This is relevant to all African countries. How about we learn about Africa? I mean, the more we know more about Europeans than we know about other Africans. That's why we have difficulties mingling with one another and accepting each other. We see each other as foreigners. We see white people on TV every single day. They tell you stories, but you know nothing about the neighbor. Let me know if you know about this. It's always a great pleasure. God bless.